far as, why don't we start one word at a time? So, if you just say Supreme Personality of God, that's not bad.
Can you just add the word soul?
I mean, in German it flies. Die höchste Persönlichkeit Gottes. It's okay. And in Swedish also, die höchste Persönlichkeit. Gudomens höchste Persönlichkeit. It's not bad. Huh? If you can say that, that's okay. It's already being accepted in so many languages. What do you think, Mr. Pias?
Well, you see, first of all, I must say that I also had this feeling that all these differences and the process of understanding how and finding terms, best terms or best variants of rendering, it shouldn't be taken personally, like a personal battle, waging.
I'm asking, what do you think about this particular phrase? The höchste.
The höchste, sorry, can you get this?
Yeah.
I think it just keeps the Supreme Personality of God. You're using the German grammar.
So what would it be in Russian?
Yeah. Well,
Верховный, supreme. But he said we can't use the word Верховный, which means supreme, because there is the word Supreme Court and the Supreme Soviet, which is Supreme Council, and then everyone will think about this, and they will not think about Supreme Personality of God.
No, I think that's fine. Let them understand the real meaning of supreme.
yeah, but
We have Supreme Court.
We have Supreme Court.
yeah, well, but the word idea I gave it's also found in this dictionary. That's Supreme, Верховный, Высший, Наивысший, all these words are there. It's not just some other word.
I would think you should use the same word as the Supreme Soviet, because they think themselves to be the Supreme God. So you should use that word. It's a good lesson for them.
The real Supreme.
You should give them what the real Supreme is. Anyway, I decided that one. You use that word. It's definitely good.
Then it is Верховная Личность Бога.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound.
Boga.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's in all these European languages.
Can we sometimes use the word Lord in the same context, Supreme Personality of Lord?
No.
I mean, using the Russian word, because neither God nor Lord, they are not Godhead. Anyway, so.
Well, God's much better than Lord.
But it's very difficult, to render the nuances between Russian, words.
Well, Lord is a word in English which could also be used for, like in old British tradition, my lord, my lady. It could, huh?
There's no aspect in Russian.
So Lord in Russian only means God.
Yeah.
Well, the C Russian superior already to English. It has two words for God, where Lord in English can be used for anybody.
But it should be standard though. That
Yeah,
term.
whatever is picked, it should be not changed anymore. But what is the word? What is the word for Lord? Huh?
Господь.
Oh, they do that in Polish.
But how can you say what
And in Yugoslavian also.
What about when you go to someone you say Господин Yakubko?
Yes, Господин.
But I mean,
Господь is just the Lord.
Yeah.
Just the Supreme.
Well,
And Господин is
Why do you then? Well, then why
the
do you,
Lord with the little L. Small.
why do you translate back to me in English Господин as Lord and Bog as God? Why did you use those two words? Why you also didn't say Господин as God instead of Lord?
Господь. Господин is something different.
Okay,
Господин means master.
Okay, I'm not a.
Or mister.
All right, so Господин, let's say Why do you say Gospodin means Lord and Bog means God? What caused you to make that decision?
Oh,
Dictionary.
It's in the dictionary.
yeah.
And also the Lord with the big L means Gospod, means the Lord with the big L. And the Lord with a small L means Господин, which is the same but smaller.
It also means sir. I mean, you speak to somebody,
If
say,
I was master,
Gospodin.
means
Yes,
that,
means sir.
It's a master usual language.
well, the words are different. They
Respectful.
they are of the same root, but they are different in the end. It's like
No, but what is the difference between Bog and Gospodin? Why is it?
and Gospod.
Gospod.
Yeah. I would say that Gospod is more, it sounds more interesting.
Solemn.
Yeah, it sounds more solemn. It makes more impression. I would say this way. It's more poetical.
The Yugoslavs use that word. You have here?
No. Here, this is naked.
No.
This, no. What is that?
That's nectar devotion.
Oh, you mean for Krishna?
Yeah. I've heard it before. No, that's TLC. No, that's Yugoslavian, but it's not the.
I was one thing
About this.
No, there's our facts, but I want to ask about spring principle.
Okay.
Our self-realization and our understanding isn't enough to understand everything that Prabhupada wrote. And of course, it will be, we mentioned some facts, but we may do many philosophical mistakes.
I don't doubt it.
What to do with it?
It's better to go ahead and do it, even if there's some defect, and then correct it later. Prabhupada personally told me that. He personally told me because he realized the problems with translation, because after all, he was translating himself. He told me, better you get the books out in an imperfect state. I'm just telling you what Prabhupada told me. They're his book. You get the books out in an imperfect state, and later on you correct them. Because the people require them. He told me exactly like this. When there's a fire in a building, you can make yourself known, even if you don't know the language, to get the people out of the building. So never be afraid of defect in language. Just get the point across somehow or another. And here this is a much more subtle example, just some little defect here and there. But the more people read, the more it will be purified. And then later on, that'll give you more engagement. When you're all finished with all the books, you can go back and start doing them again properly.
So may we use this, coming back to finish with this notion, may we render that Supreme is Верховная, personality is the word Личность, and the word for Godhead is Господь.
Maybe, because
it sounds more,
that's actually what Godhead's supposed to do. It's supposed to be more reverential and more.
Yeah.
So from that point of view.
And by the way, the word God is sometimes may be implied, although we didn't have that in Russian previously, but from what we understand now, that sometimes it may imply demigod, and as far as the word Господь is concerned, it never...
Well, then that word may be superior.
Yeah, it implies only the superior person, nothing else, because, they discuss false gods like that. But the word Господь cannot be... it
cannot be used.
It cannot be used in such situation.
She says it cannot be used this way. Why?
Because it
has no tradition of using it for
it
questioning.
It's like one person, one.
Yeah.
No, she's not supposed to.
One person, not Godhead, but one person.
She used the word Gospod.
It cannot be
Why?
the supreme personality of God.
It is already the
Person is one person, no.
But that's right. It is one person.
With the supreme
No,
personality
but
of
of Godhead. It cannot change the word Godhead also one person, isn't Godhead.
Godhead is one person. It sounds to me exactly like the right word. The more I'm listening, what do you think?
Well, listening to her point, you define Godhead as meaning God in all of His expansions and everything.
No, Godhead is the one person who is the source of all the expansions. I said it many times, the source.
Supreme personality of God.
Is that one person?
Is that one person? Godhead is one person.
Sounds like she's saying the supreme the supreme person of one person.
No, person and personality are different. The supreme personality of one person, yes, because that one person has unlimited personalities.
But we have Krishna is that one person.
Krishna is that one person.
But when he appears as Krishna, that is the supreme personality.
And Krishna, when he appears, includes within him all the other expansions.
So,
Yes, he's infinite. That's the meaning. Now you're beginning to catch on to the infinity of Krishna. That one Krishna includes within him all of the other expansions. That's why when Krishna kills demons in Vrindavan, he does it as his Vasudeva portion. Krishna himself doesn't do it. It's Vasudeva Krishna who kills the demons in Vrindavan. And when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, it's Vasudeva Krishna who leaves Vrindavan, and Nandanandana Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He stays in Vrindavan. Even though it seems as if Vasudeva Krishna has gotten on the chariot of Akrura and driven out of Vrindavan.
but there's never a question of a difference, and it's always the same person.
He's a Dvaita,
Yeah.
non-dual, one Krishna,
Non-dual.
one supreme personality. Amongst all personalities, he's the supreme personality, one person, who includes within himself every other person, and including also the other personalities of Godhead.
But in Russian, there is just one word, person.
Yeah, so we're not arguing about the word personality.
So we can, so for us it's the same as person and personality, it's the same portion.
Oh. Well, a person has a personality.
We don't have words for such subtle things in Russian. In this case.
No,
Person is always, person just have one word. There is individuality also. But,
yeah, look in the dictionary for personality. Come on. That's impossible. How do you talk?
Hey, you say character, or you say individuality?
Neither of these are the point.
Yeah, then you say person.
individual.
He is a person. When you say in Russian, he is a person. It includes both meanings, person and personality.
Oh, but you would never say he is a personality. I mean, you might say he's a great personality.
But when you say he has a personality, it means he has, in Russian you say he has an individuality.
This person and personality,
Just see.
Oh,
what does it mean?
but it means the same. Личность, индивидуальность, the same as person or individuality.
Well, that's, I think that you face every now and then when you different languages, yeah.
Oh God, personality is not there. Now what do we do? We managed to get Supreme, we managed to get Lord in there, or whatever, Gospodine, and now personality screwed up the whole thing.
No, it had this meaning, but it also just that they didn't have different words, to express different.
So will it sound funny to say the Supreme Person of the Lord? You can say the Supreme Personality of...
Yeah.
So what is it in Russian
I
now?
mean, it sounds so weird.
Well, Supreme Personality of God, it sounds weird too until you get used to it. So what does it say in Russian?
Верховная личность Господа.
What she doesn't
Eternal.
No, I mean, she has no time. I don't know, I just don't know.
What does it say again, slowly?
Верховная личность Господа.
Sounds nice.
It has come out.
But that's the whole situation, that a new culture gives new notions, new words, new usages of words that were already existing. So
It sounds nice anyway. It's got a nice ring to it.
I mean, I personally had this, fear that there was the Verkhovnik has, some reminds of, like some typical Soviet themes. Well, but that can.
But that's not necessarily bad, because people already have in their mind that that thing means the supreme something or other. And so therefore it'll be very easy for them to move to the next stage, that this is the supreme personality of God.
Well, I just, first of all, I want to say that I don't insist. But the other words you just saying, they also show that supreme is supreme.
No, he's not.
Yeah, but the point is that if they use in their country the idea of the supreme Soviet or the supreme court, that's actually what we want. We want that meaning. That meaning which refers to that supreme body in that country. Supreme Soviet, I would suppose, implies that no other body is superior to them. And that's exactly the word we want. The supreme. I know why he doesn't like it, because it's a political term.
I mean, people, they have some, when that...
No, Supreme Court or Supreme Soviet, by definition, these are political terms.
The thing is that people are so, they're so tired, of the, of the Soviet power and of the Soviet politics and everything, that whenever they find something similar, like in dissident, literatures, they immediately reject, these are anti-Soviet, but they're Soviet-made anti-Soviets. So.
No, but nobody will ever misunderstand when you put God and Supreme in the same line. They'll not misunderstand.
Just on psychological level.
I don't.
No, just on psychological. Well, but may I also ask about some principles, which I also think also important discussing principles. Was discussed in terms of
How do you translate in Czech the supreme personality of God?
Nejvyšší božská osobnost.
Božská what?
Osobnost.
Osobnost.
Personality.
It means person.
Supreme. No, personality. Doesn't mean person.
No?
Personality.
Do you have two different words for person and personality?
Osoba and osobnost.
That's all of us translate in Czech.
And what about super soul? What you use?
Oversoul.
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 Oversoul is what traditionally, previously, the other Vaishnava acharyas used. Prabhupada picked up super soul. I think super is a new word in English, isn't it?
Super sharp.
But these are new words. There never was such thing before.
It came from Latin, this prefix.
Supra?
Super, yeah.
Perhaps.
Definitely new.
It seems to be new.
Superman,
Superman, I mean, these are all concoctions. So, Prabhupada, I think he picked right up on it because it was the perfect word. I mean, everybody in America immediately knew what it meant. I mean, you never have to explain the word super soul. I don't know why. You have that experience also?
Yeah.
Everybody immediately knows what super soul means.
I never had that experience.
You never have to explain. I don't know why. We all accept it immediately. We grew up on Superman and this and that, and super soul.
Immediately it transferred
right into
super soul.
Super soul, sure.
And this is the situation that sometimes we use words and notions or even prefixes that had some...
You have such a thing as the supra, the Latin equivalent in Russian, supra?
We have this prefix,
No,
but
not the Latin, we use the Russian.
Yeah, what is the Russian, I meant the Russian equivalent of the Latin prefix supra?
Yeah.
we have this prefix also. It's
Like
super. But we have even super. It's also in the Russian language, but it's not possible because it's very.
Yeah, we
It's
have
only
super.
Superman. It's sort of superstar.
Yeah, we have
Two words. Just two words. We get use that very much.
Super.
serious, да, это просто слышно. Ну, это по поводу рукописи, just
В остальном это
рукопись.
нет такого строения.
Superman.
What do you call Superman in Russian?
Superman?
Just
What's
literally
your
translated.
We have the Russian word.
Whether you have Superman movies or Superman,
No, it's also rendered just literally Superman.
they just say it in English.
Yeah,
Superman.
especially
Or you
when
can, or in more literal,
What do they say?
use сверхчеловек, which is
What is it?
сверхчеловек.
superhuman being.
Super person?
No,
So-
it means Superman.
Sver-
That's
Svercha?
just Superman.
Is Svercha the word, the super?
Вверх.
Yeah,
Sfera is super.
yeah.
So you can say Sfera Dusha, whatever.
Вверх душа.
But about people like James Bond who actually represent this notion Superman, we also use just exactly Superman.
James Bond.
Yeah. Well, that's the way, you know, when they discuss, Western movies, they just do
So
it.
you don't like this Sfera Dusha, whatever it is?
No,
Well,
it's
if it's
supreme personality. It's like,
What? No, but he
Which
suggests
one?
supreme soul and
No. Supreme Soul, you should not say.
no, in Russian words.
You should not say
You
Supreme
shouldn't
Soul.
say. How should you say it?
super. Вверх душа.
Like Sfera Dush?
Вверх душа.
What's it, Sfera Dusha? What about Oversoul? What would that be?
Над душой.
Oh, that sounds like the Polish word also. Isn't it? Not Dusha, yeah. That's Polish.
Well, and what explanation would you give to the word super soul? Although everybody
Super
in the West
Soul.
understands it.
Super Soul simply means Krishna within the heart. It tells you what to do.
It does mean supreme soul?
No.
It doesn't mean high. The highest.
It doesn't mean higher.
So why
It means
the-
higher.
The highest. The highest.
Higher, yeah.
But couldn't we use the word high? It just sounds good.
High soul?
The highest level.
The higher soul.
How would you say it in Russian?
Высшая душа.
That's what I'm saying.
Ну, say верховная душа.
No, which I meant this.
What is it now?
So, well, they actually give, I suggested the word высшее, which, you see, we discussed this word supreme.
Do you agree with that? What you also said it?
But
What was that word?
She doesn't have a sort of
It means higher. The high soul.
A higher soul or the higher soul?
No. It means the high soul and it could mean a high soul.
Well,
It's not the highest, it's the highest.
высшее.
You don't have a way to, you don't have the, that's okay, that's what we want, the second bit. So, yeah.
Yes.
Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagawan. Bhagawan is the highest soul.
That's wild.
So what, I mean, not that we're degrading the super soul. We're just trying to place him in the proper position because he only exists here in the material world and only to travel with you. He's called localized form of the Supreme.
So it's высшая душа.
Probably right, but I'm trying to say that you should, but he's the higher soul, not a higher soul. It cannot have the meaning of anyone else.
Not like somebody's spiritual and they're considered
Right.
a higher soul
It cannot
than
have
you.
any other meaning like that. It must be the. It must be a strictly.
Super soul.
Yes, he must be somebody who is strictly on that. No one else can
You can't call a priest that.
exclusive.
The highest soul. Super soul means the highest soul.
The higher, but it has to mean the higher soul. No one else can possibly be in it. That no other human being or jiva soul or anybody like that can ever take that position.
Is the higher and the highest synonyms?
Higher and highest?
It
No.
means a high or the high can
No, but then it's not good enough.
Because I found in the dictionary that high means not just higher than somebody else, but the most high.
That's not true.
I was surprised to find it even in English dictionary.
Some dictionaries aren't very good.
No, perhaps we're not native English speakers.
There are some dictionaries which are standards, and I don't think the one in your hand is one of them.
So super means the higher.
Well, it's not what it means really, but I'm just picking up on the words you're using and trying to modify them in such a way that it actually brings out the real concept, which is exclusivity in position. Nobody else is on that platform. Only Paramatma. No other living being is on that platform or higher. Only Krishna and his expansions are on a higher level, Bhagawan. No other person could ever be on that level. No jiva soul, no demigod, no nobody. Not even Brahman can be on that level. Well, neither does super soul, really, because super soul is just like it's just a word. But if that word you picked out also could mean, somebody who just happens to be great, a higher soul, it has to be rejected as the word.
But then if you use the word super soul, Svirdusha, then it also can mean more than big.
But has anyone else ever taken that term or used it for themselves? Then we can automatically take it for exclusivity. All right, then it might be better. It might be better to just take that word.
Super soul didn't exist even when I translated the universal.
There's no capitalization in Russian.
Sorry?
Do you have capital?
Sure.
You capitalize it?
Oh, sure.
Can you capitalize the first letter of this word? Then there it is.
Now, they do all the Soviet books that say God, they're all little g. They don't make a capital G, they make a little g for God.
And God makes little r.
But before the
In the Bible, it's
No,
the
Soviet.
revolution, the Boston Revolution, there was capital G.
So why don't you say the super soul with a big S?
we always do that.
Like what?
Or what would be the word then?
Sure.
You use that now?
No,
It doesn't sound good Russian.
Well, super soul doesn't sound good in English.
yeah, it sounds
Well,
a bit like it sounds in English.
Well, that's great. It's wonderful in English.
No, in English there's the word unnatural superstar, for example. I mean, at the present.
Yeah. Is there any swear anything in Russian?
Just Superman, and it's
No, but super dusha is just.
No. All I meant to ask was, is there a sphera anything else?
Oh yeah.
What?
You can put plus everything. Anything.
Sphere?
Сверхзвезда, сверхчеловеку, сверх.
Yeah,
Superstar.
Yeah.
Okay, then it makes sense to say the super soul and use a capital S. I think it's quite all right. Because it already exists, everybody knows what it means, it amplifies things. But by making it an exclusive term, which no one else is using for anything else, that's very good.
But if we say the higher soul, also nobody.
Yeah, but you can say a higher soul, it could just mean somebody else.
No, higher,
No.
there's nobody higher.
Oh no, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Высший.
Look it up in the dictionary.
You can say again capital H, then it's
Высшее, без capital, with capital.
Этот nonsense with this week. Мы уже его говорили, неправильно.
Look it up in the dictionary.
Значит, высшее, это означает самый высокий.
Нет, не означает.
Well, that's just what
Это означает что-то выше, чем что-то другое. Выше.
У вас есть В?
Или это может означать supreme. And the problem is that our word high can also mean the highest. It can also mean the supreme.
Well, that's not bad. That's also good.
Well, you said that the supreme soul is not right.
Yeah, you wouldn't say the Supreme Soul, but in Super Soul also, you could conceive of it as being supreme. You've got to allow the fact that Krishna is infinite. He can act through his potency as Super Soul in the supreme way too. You cannot limit Krishna like this.
Then why can't we say supreme soul?
Because that's not his role, to act as the Supreme Soul. Because he doesn't act that way as the Supreme Soul. Bhagavan acts as the Supreme Soul.
And then if the word Visha means also highest, then highest. So
Well, the highest soul is not what you want to say.
yeah, but it says it. It says the higher, a higher, the higher, or the highest. Just the same thing as the true.
Well, then that's not, because just like everybody who tried Paramatma, Param, just like we have Guru and Param Guru. It means grand. Like, you have your spiritual master and his spiritual master. So he becomes your grand spiritual master, like father, grandfather.
Yeah.
Soul, grand soul, But grand soul makes no sense. Param Atma, in Sanskrit, it makes sense.
Well, I think Svirha is just the right word, because it means something which is, I think it's just the right word.
You also like that word.
Well, see, I personally don't like it because,
What was your idea?
no, my idea was another word which represents the same thing, Vishri. And we can look up in the
It means
dictionary.
ehai, the high, the high.
Let's look in the dictionary. Why should we use?
Okay, let's see what it says.
Vishri, for example. Vishri.
Which
Yeah,
one
it
we
means
got?
that there is nothing higher than that.
Yeah.
Exactly, but Vishnu Pada said that it's not.
Hey, here it says, superior. Let's wait till the dictionary says.
Here we come across one principle which has to be.
Yeah, I think the principle is that I have to do these things. I think that's what the principle is. You can all talk all you want, but I have to make the decision.
Yeah, that's the best.
Come on, give me. Which one? Well,
Almost the same.
yeah, it is.
Here it is.
This one, okay?
May I go and take Russian dictionary?
Please.
Ah,
There is a piece of oilcloth over the tablecloth.
What?
There's a piece of oilcloth over the tablecloth. I think you got the wrong one.
What's that?
Oh, from above, from the top, on top, view from above.
It's just a prefix. It's not.
The light falls from above. The fifth line from the top.
Yeah.
Place, put the book on top. Look down on top of everything. Yeah.
But this is not the way it's used in connection with super sound. This is what is mentioned here.
Yeah.
This is more like comparison.
This one's not so good, doesn't it? It
I mean,
doesn't.
personally, I prefer the other one, the color.
What he said.
Yeah, I mean, I said, yeah.
So if we just do it with a capital letter, then we ought to be able to wipe out all other persons' claims to the terms.
So, which word was it?
Okay, next.
Well, next, anything? I was moving. Anything?
Yeah.
Well,
I always want words, not principles. I just want the words.
but the principles, they're, otherwise, we have.
I just said what the principle is. I'm going to decide.
Yeah, so can I
Okay.
present for you to decide
Yes.
about this principle?
Okay.
Well, I remember one letter that I read in the Soviet Union from you, although I read it in Russian, and there I found a recommendation which helped me a lot and which I was very happy to find because
What was it?
that was on a way to translate. It was said that we shouldn't translate literally, but find the natural Russian way to render what Prabhupada says. Otherwise, people would find it difficult to understand.
Okay, now I'll explain to you what I meant by literally.
Mhm.
We're having the same debate right now in Spanish production. And this debate is going over 4 continents. So, in Spanish, the Spanish language and the English language are very similar in a lot of respects. However, there are different degrees of Spanish. Some are more elegant than others. Some are more literal than others. You can actually translate in Spanish word for word and practically get away with it. But it'll be accepted. I mean, somebody will accept it. They won't say you're a rascal or whatever. I mean, but the higher class people, they say, this is a word-by-word literary translation. That means, Krishna said, give up all fruits of activity. So you say in Spanish, practically the exact same thing. You say, Krishna said, Krishna dijo. You give up all fruits of activity, you say it in that same way. So, a more educated person would think that this is stiff translation. They use that exact word, stiff, which means that it's like, it's just rigid. It doesn't have any beautiful flow or poetic sound to it, so they don't like it. Now, then from that point, there are different alternatives. I was suggesting the next alternative only, not the longer distance alternative, which is what I heard somebody say what you thought in the beginning, which was that you digest these statements and then give it out in your words, which would be more natural Russian words, and then this would be the sentence. Okay, now, I don't accept that. That principle's too far out. That's too far away. What I'm saying is that you don't translate it word for word for word for word, but you translate using the words which refer to the same thing as much as possible, but it flows out in a Russian way. For instance, sometimes they have to take the sentences and change the structure around. Instead of go to the door, open the door, and then call somebody. That's bad. That's a succession statement. Pick up the book and the cloth and the cup and maybe it flows more better to move the phrases. Pick this up and when it's not in succession, do this, then do this, then do this. You have to do it the same way. But if it's do this and this and this and this and this, how you put them all together may be different according to the natural language. Or maybe you would separate it into two sentences, which may make more sense. Or maybe you would perhaps make different phrases. Combining, I think, is rarer. The Yugoslavs had that problem. The Yugoslav translator was combining sentences. And by doing that, she lost completely the meaning of Prabhupada. And everybody rebelled against it like anything. Making shorter sentences is okay, because then you're making the meaning more concise. Okay, then maybe in Russian it doesn't work. In other languages, it does work. Shorter sentences are better than longer ones. When you make longer ones and stick them together, then the meaning gets convoluted. The real meaning is all jumbled up in some spaghetti somewhere. Therefore, we don't make longer sentences. It's a very bad rule. And we don't rephrase everything in our own words. We use the words as closely as possible, but we have a certain freedom of putting it together in a nice way.
What does it mean?
Well, I can't give you an example because you don't know any of the languages that I might give the example in.
Well, just theoretically, well, the whole problem of discussing this situation is that as far as one can understand, our goal is to present to people what Prabhupada is saying to them. So, and
well, wait. That's a mistake. Our goal is to translate Prabhupada's books into Russian. not to present to people what Prabhupada's saying. Our goal is to translate his books. He's the author. So our goal is to put his words into Russian.
Yeah.
As if he wrote it in Russian. That's our goal. As if he was the author.
As if he would. That's the thing I came to. And there is one peculiar thing I have heard from Kirtila Prabhu and from other devotees that there are a lot of strange things in Prabhupada language, and I am not, a native speaker, but I also feel, and I think that all the native speakers feel that even more than we can do, is that Prabhupada's language is very poetic. It's very.
We never said it wasn't poetic. We never said it wasn't poetic.
Yeah.
It's actually very nice in English.
Yeah.
But nobody speaks like that. It's very nice in and of itself, but just people don't speak like that. It's
So can we understand that?
It's transcendental. It transcends language. It really is not.
And
That's why if you've ever tried to translate a book written by anyone else, you'll find it almost a person who is very easily able to translate Prabhupada's books falls flat on his face trying to translate, let's say, the Lilamrita, or even my book. It's like impossible. The person runs into mountains of difficulty.
Who easily translate Prabhupada's books?
Yeah, a person who could translate easily Prabhupada, because Prabhupada doesn't use idioms. There are practically no idioms in Prabhupada's books. And that's what makes the language so strange for us. Because we are, especially Americans, speak entirely in idioms. You may have noticed when you were in America. They never use English language. Everything is an idiom. For the slightest thing, it's an idiom. Yeah. Just like when I say, get away with it. I mean, and I'm pretty practiced at not using idioms because I have to speak to foreigners all the time. My whole life, practically for 15 years now, has been speaking to foreigners. So I've learned to get rid of all my idioms. But still, every now and then one pops up. Now, in America, they only use idioms. Practically, if you go to New York, Washington's a little bit cultured place. If you go to New York, every sentence will be idioms strung on idioms, strung on idioms, strung on idioms, strung on idioms. Idioms strung. Means connected.
Give him a break.
Idioms just connected together, one after another, and there'll be no language anymore. Just idioms, just pictures flying in the air. Pure New Yorkese never speaks English. It's just pictures. This picture, that phrase, this idiom. It's wild. It's wild. For a foreigner, it's completely wild. So, Prabhupada's language is totally devoid of idioms. Only every now and then he puts some idiom in. And if he does, it's generally a British idiom that we don't relate to as Americans. So, that's what makes. I can do that too. That's what makes the books of Prabhupada so special. And that's also what makes the translating job very tough. Just like in Spanish, there are many ways you can say therefore. Now Prabhupada just says therefore. But in Spanish, they've picked out like en la siguiente manera, por lo tanto, so many different ways to say the same exact thing, therefore. He's got 5 different ways now in which he says therefore. Because in Spanish, if you keep saying over and over again, por lo tanto, after a while people go nuts. And also in Spanish, they always say por ejemplo, for example. It drives me crazy. Because I can't stand all the time to hear, for example, for example, for example. In English, we have many ways of saying for example. Like take, for instance, just one little example. In this way, we get sick of hearing all the time, por ejemplo. And it drives me crazy. I hear, we have so many ways. We never use the same word. So, but in Spanish they only have one word. So in English sometimes we have one word, and in other languages they go crazy with this one word because they have 5 or 10 different ways to say the same thing. So therefore, you are allowed, if there is such a thing, where in English there's only one word, and you can't stand that, because you've got 10 ways of saying it, you can spice up your language by throwing in different ones.
So is it proper for, say, Prabhupada's book in Spanish, and he used this again and again, and you know that the English reader would get sick and tired in 2 minutes. Would it be proper to write it national English way, not to make this impression which actually doesn't even exist in Spanish?
Right, that's what I just finished saying. But that doesn't mean you think about what he's really saying and then rephrase the whole thing. It simply means that whenever you run up against the word, for example, you may change it to something else to keep it reasonable. There's a big difference now. One simply allows freedom of words or phrases to put them in your native way of doing things. The other means you're changing according to your understanding, and that's dangerous.
Well, I guess I was misunderstood.
No, I think maybe you expressed it wrong, because I understood perfectly well what you said.
No, I mean,
it scared
by
me.
those whom I spoke to, who, it's like, well...
Is this helpful for you? You already know.
Well, I was speaking about...
Yeah, it takes a while.
I didn't mean, complicated philosophical things, because when you apply, and that's the whole point. The whole idea is that as much as you can, you try to avoid speculation in translation. So when there is something that is philosophically difficult
Here,
to understand,
you avoid completely speculation, because there's so many people to ask. I mean, you got here, a first-class translator who already been working for years in the thing. You can just ask them. Or you've got others here who know English fairly well.
so as far as these philosophical situations are concerned, there is no problem with just ask somebody. But there are, very simple things, and they're expressed in an English way. I mean,
Example.
I translated life comes from life, and there was an example how.
You know that phrase "life comes from life" was the subject of a roaring controversy in Spanish.
It's in English.
Because it's a very difficult thing to say in Spanish. There are like 2 or 3 different ways you can say the same thing. One way in Russian. One way in English only also, like I can't think of another way to say it. But in Spanish there were 3 different versions of life comes from life. But what word specifically?
There was a sentence that just find this, to show that it's very exemplary case, but just present it in some way or other. There was discussing how bodies are different, and the idea was that a cow has a certain body, and a man and a woman, they are in very many ways similar, but still there is difference, and that's why a woman can feed her child, give him her milk, and a man cannot. So this was my first experience in translating a book 3 years ago. Well, I was very happy. I translated very quickly, and at the same time I realized that I presented it much better than those who had no skill, no literary skill, and not so much.
What's the point?
But still, that was very literal. And then I showed it to some devotees, and I was surprised that they were not happy, and I put it aside for some reasons, and then I took 3 months later, and I was horrified. It was just something that I couldn't believe it was me who translated it. So I started to do it again. And then I found out that I speak about very simple situation, not about some, philosophical subtleties that if you know, you shouldn't speculate, and even if you know, better to ask again to be sure. So, but I say about a very simple thing like this situation with the border differences. Not because I literally translated word by word, it was crazy Russian. And this is the whole point. When the language is not natural, you may know, to be sure, to be guaranteed from any complaints and accusations. You may say, look, here is this word and this an English word. But just look up in the dictionary, you'll find that I use this very word. But that's a formal thing. And the effect is quite contrary. That because the language, it's like some scale, some degrees of violating of the laws of the language. One instance is you use too much, for example, too many foreign words. Another is you translate too little. Finally, the result is that the reader cannot follow you. He just can't follow. He is eager, but he doesn't understand why. This is language. It's Russian words. Not more. Russian words doesn't make Russian language.
So what is your point?
The point is that with these simple things, it's better to understand the meaning and to render it in the Russian way, to render it precisely. Not to some speculation. Only when you are sure, and if you are not sure, just to ask. But I don't think about philosophical. I speak about very simple things in everyday, discussing everyday and everything.
Are you implying that she does that sometimes?
I didn't see Elena's translation so much, so I saw a lot of translations of the Soviet Union which devotees themselves were not happy about, and that's why the whole thing started that I went into translation. I wasn't a translator, but I had some qualification in literary work, and I had some knowledge of English. And they devotees liked my translation, and they asked me to explain how I come. And with that, I did it with Sati. I showed her my literal translation first.
Are you saying that you want to translate?
Sorry?
It would help me in this conversation if you would say what point you're trying to make at the end.
I'm trying to bring this point that when it is not natural to translate, to just make a copy of the English sentence, then it's your duty to find a natural Russian way. Because sometimes you use the word which is not the meaning, which is not found in the dictionary, because the authors of the dictionary, they want readers to have intelligence and to understand that they just give the basic meanings, and so there are some meanings that cannot, be given because the context gives some, aspect that, and it's even difficult to, to include all the possible meanings like that, and then. So the whole idea is that, I guess you just said it some time ago, that say the way Prabhupada would say if he spoke natural Russian. So this is the whole idea. I presume that although we know that Prabhupada language, just from the English point of view, is special, but that's one thing special, another thing is literal. So our translations that exist in the Soviet Union, you cannot justify them by this example, because...
But what about as far as I've heard, the translations that we put out in the Russian Bhagavad Gita were very nice. Everybody liked it.
Excuse me, can I ask, do you want to talk to Swami at all, or just Sriram, that's enough?
Sriram's enough.
Well, you see, as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, Elena didn't initiate this translation, so to say. She just edited the translation that was spread from the Soviet Union by devotees who themselves realized that they are not competent to do it, and they're complaining about it and the translation themselves. And she didn't have much time and everything, so...
But still, I heard people complimented it like anything.
Who did it?
Well,
I mean, so many people did, including Tarkovsky, who you heard yourself. So many people, so many men tell me, it was a masterpiece. There's mistakes. There's obviously mistakes.
There are rough places, like, if I had translated it myself, it would be different. But because I couldn't change everything, I just couldn't do it. That's why there are rough things there. And Vedavia said that his grandmother would never read those.
Sorry? Yeah, that's the whole thing. That
those are strong words.
Although she chanted Hare Krishna, I just mean that you see, a person like I asked this famous Russian film director.
But I don't think we should not base what our opinion is on the basis of that Bhagavad Gita. That was only a first attempt.
Yeah.
You should read the new stuff. In fact, that's what you should do. You should work with the new.
That's what I want to do, but there isn't opportunity for me to do it.
I just finished saying in the beginning, you should work on these new books and work, to check over and edit or whatever. I think that would be nice. No translator should be allowed to edit their own book. The first editing, that's not editing. That just means you're fixing up your translation. But after that, it should be edited by somebody else. Now, that does not mean changing everything. No, but it cannot be like that. It simply means correcting those things which are required to be corrected, not just changing everything.
I have to say one thing about
We
that.
make a test.
It may be Lord Chaitanya's 550th anniversary.
No, but we have to work fast. It's not our right to take all day to make it perfect. We have a schedule. So many pages a day. Must be done. Must be done. 100? No editor on earth can do 100 pages. The best editor I ever saw was 50 pages.
Well, it depends on the quality. When I was,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. 50 pages a day is a super editor. 40 pages a day, I can understand it too. Between two, maybe you can do 100 pages a
But
day.
if I can translate this 57, 40 pages a day, why can't you edit the 100?
Because it's much easier to translate than to edit. Sure. Because editing, you have to see. Translating, you already have a guide, the original English. But for the editor, he's coming into it straight from his own language, without knowing what the English was. So his point of view is different than your point of view. Your point of view is based on the English. So these defects which he may have brought up will definitely be in there to a certain degree. But he has to see this from a purely Russian point of view. Fine, him or any editor has to see it from a purely Russian point of view. And thus, he has to make it work in the Russian language from sentence to sentence to sentence, whereas a translator translates this sentence, then this sentence, then this sentence, then this sentence. The flow of the thing, the specific words may be used again and again in a way which maybe some have to be changed. Editor's job is actually very difficult if it's done properly. The biggest problem we had in German book production was not translating. Translating, we could get plenty of people to translate. It was editing, and it was a big battle with the editors. We had 5 or 6 editors at one point working simultaneously, and one final editor. We had 3 translators, 5 or 6 editors, and one final editor when we were really going fast.
If I translate it, then I edit it first, and then I make it, nice and pick up all the parts and this and that, then why can't you? Why should it take him?
It might not. It might go fast. But what your job would be if you take up this role, Mr. Vyas, would be you have to sit down and do it all day, 10, 12 hours a day. And you have to work fast, a certain amount of pages every day. I mean, you can't slow it down because then the book doesn't come out.
Well,
even if you think it has to go slower, you have to make it more perfect, you have to change this, that can't be.
well, that first of all, the situation that Irene is in now, it implies to a certain extent, because some compromise between the realistic way to do it, and there's some perfectionist,
Right.
So in this way,
And again, the editor has to compromise too.
yeah. So I mean that. Another thing is that that's the way professionals work. The most famous professionals, the Russians, the most brilliant, the most Nobel Prize winners like that. And they said that each of them wants to have an editor. Why? Because one cannot be so perfect, to see it. What the translation is all about is to present to others.
Yeah, but I also have editors,
Yeah.
and I can't stand them.
So,
I fight with them all the time.
Yeah.
Because editor wants to change. He cannot tolerate
well,
things being given subtly. He wants things to be very concrete, and just like when I wrote the Varnashram book, my English writing is very much more subtle than that. And that my editor made everything slam, bang, whappo, smacko, crack.
By the way, the editor doesn't want his name appearing on the Russian edition.
who was that?
Anyway, whatever it is. So the point is that we fight all the time about this point, because I want the subtleties to be maintained, but the book had lost 40% of all subtlety, and it became very gross, which very much against my desire.
I
So-
can't fight with the ladies,
Yeah, right. That's the point. That editor has to be sensitive to also the translator's mood and desire. Otherwise, you're going to have contradictory work. She did this, and you turn it back to that. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that's what you're going to do. All I'm saying is that ground rules. I'm setting ground rules. You should do a test. You should do it tomorrow too. You should spend all day tomorrow. And you should translate 30, 40, 50 pages tomorrow. Edit.
It's not a final version, It's not almost final. So at the present,
And maybe you can spend one day and make a lot in your final version and just give it to him. And then you got the final version as test. Then we can see how far we can go with this group.
Otherwise, that's not her version yet.
Okay, so she'll tomorrow make a final version of some 100 pages or so.
Well,
And that'll keep you busy for 2 days.
There's a problem that I translate very fast to English.
But that's not bad.
I don't make it flowery, I don't make it right.
But that's all right.
It could be, I could make it more beautiful. I could make it sound perfect Russian, but then it wouldn't be French.
That's right, and that's what... Wait, let me tell you, the French ran into that problem. The French translator... She's saying that it would not be Prabhupada if she made it more and more flowery. And this was the problem the French translation ran into. They made it so flowery, it was no longer a Prabhupada anymore. And in fact, that was highly criticized for that. Especially by me. So therefore, this standard I like. But it should, those words which again and again pop up, and these phrases and all these things which I explained, that we can go over. So you should not retranslate. If the editor becomes the retranslator, then he's a rascal.
I see. Well, may I ask just one question? Not as far as editing is concerned, because there's another situation. But
Editing is very hard. It takes very much intelligence to edit properly.
But I just want to get this, clarified about translation. I mean, the literal translation and what Ilana does is not literal anyway. It is not Prabhupada anyway. It's like, it's like a formal way. Look, here is the word, here is the word, here is the sentence, here is the sentence. It's not.
It's not like that. You haven't even seen a translation.
I don't speak about yours. I don't speak about yours.
No, you just said Yelena.
No.
That's what you have just said.
You did say what Yelena translates is not Prabhupada. That's what you said.
I heard it too.
That's what you said.
Well, that's my life. That's my life.
It's called karma, not luck.
What I was meaning to say is that literal translation, which is not Yelena, is doing, I just speak about those little translations we have in the Soviet Union. And I said that...
You said which is not what she's doing.
Yeah, she's not doing
Okay.
literal translation. I just, by some, I just heard some tape that she did of her translation, a part of it. And it's quite different from the Bhagavad Gita, so there is no point of discussing whether it's literal or not. It's not literal. But the whole thing with literal translations is that they do not represent Prabhupada, One can formally say, look, this is flowery language, this is just, it is...
No, wait. The literal translation is what we don't want. But when I said it should be as if Prabhupada was writing in his native language, it means a parallel translation, which uses the same words, putting them in a Russian way, but not just mechanically linking the two. It was as if Prabhupada was sitting down on the typewriter and writing in Russian.
Natural, good Russian language.
Yeah, a specific style.
Well, that's very difficult to,
No, it means
communicate
you
this
batch
subtleties.
your intelligence into a kind of a motive energy as if you were just writing it, but now you're just translating it. It's a very special mentality. It means you don't allow the language to become, like she says, very flowery, because that's not the way you wrote. And you don't allow it to become linked with the English, because then that's also not Russian. But it's one step removed, and you're just putting it in Russian.
Yeah, that's the whole
That's
situation
the art.
about good translation.
That's
It's not
right,
literal, and it is not
And it
concoction.
doesn't cover
Yeah.
or subvert the translator. It just allows, it's transparent. Like the spiritual master's got to be the transparent via media. So the translator has to be the transparent via media by which the author's words come through. If the author uses more complex phraseology in sentence, the translator does too. If the author uses more simplistic way of doing it, the translator does too. It's just the pure representative of the...
What I actually found helpful is that, just to understand the meaning of, I mean simple things, simple, but to understand the actual meaning. And then this meaning is what pushes you to find the proper language.
No, I think you've got to understand the language style is something which is a different thing than the meaning.
Yes, I mean...
So the style of translation is the specific way. You have to understand the way it's been done in English and do it the same way as if it was being done in Russian. And then the meaning, of course, has to be exactly the same. But the style is something different than the meaning.
It's irrespective of the meaning.
Right.
That the style maintains, even though
Well,
the meanings
it has some
Obviously,
very different relationship with the meaning, but it's not, of course, just the meaning. And that's the whole point also, that some people think, well, let's at least represent the meaning. But then, actually, one cannot say that it's different, because actually, I would say that the meaning is both things. Just
No, the style is definitely different than the meaning, although they're connected because the style is representing the meaning. But the style has to be maintained individually, and the meaning then has to be represented within the style. So, I would suspect that she's actually doing that. I would just suspect from what she said. So, why don't we do like this?
But who is doing it?
You know.
I didn't read much, but what I heard from the tape, that was good. I didn't compare it with the text. I found it...
Okay, so she'll work out 100 pages tomorrow, something like that. And she'll give them to you. Then you have to sit down the next day. Tomorrow you should read Prabhupada's books in English a lot and get into the mood. Then the next day, you should sit down and start editing it, and quickly. And let's see what you do. And I'll be back on Saturday, and we'll have another little meeting maybe. Because I can't do this all the time. It's 8:30, I gotta get to the press.
You're gonna be up late tonight.
I gotta make a few million phone calls, and I gotta do so many things. So, yeah.
Just
What?
the cook and
Rukmini cried, when she lost Pradyumna.
The cuckoo bird?
Yeah.
Rukmini cried like a cuckoo bird who lost her.
A cuckoo? Oh, what kind of bird? Cuckoo?
Yeah.
K-O-O-K-O.
Yeah.
Oh, I think C-O-O-K-O-O.
No.
A C-O-O-C-O.
C-O-C-O-U.
Yeah.
So it's
A cuckoo bird is the bird that goes in the clock that comes out and goes.
That's all that's all Americans know, the cuckoo
but
bird.
everyone in Russian knows that the cuckoos, and the Webster dictionary says it, that the cuckoo bird is the bird who lays her egg in someone else's nest and forgets about her kids and just never sees them again.
That's why we also say is Mooney as a cuckoo or something like that.
So, when there is such a comparison,
He's a cuckoo, she's a cuckoo, something.
there is such a comparison. Rukmini cried over the lost child as a cuckoo bird, like a cuckoo bird cried.
Probably in Sanskrit it's something completely different. You see, sometimes these Sanskrit words are there. So the Prabhupada looks it up in the dictionary, and the dictionary says cuckoo bird, but maybe that's not what it, specific literal meaning might be.
In Russia,
We should get the updated correction on the Krishna book. They just did that in America. Yes, they're actually.
Yeah, they already published the book, the new Krishna book. It's published by Bhaktivedanta Books Reg Vadutz.
You mean this?
It's a 1-volume Krishna book.
Oh,
No, not that.
Oh,
You don't have it. I have it in my room in Zurich.
oh my God.
It's a completely
But
updated
what
Krishna book.
happens is everyone speculates that Prabhupada didn't really mean cuckoo, and then they want to change the word, and then
Or drop the whole example.
That's why I said it should be checked in Sanskrit what exactly that word was. That's the only way you can do it.
What Vedavya says is people just say bird. But can we read it to you?
No, you just can't say it.
But this is Krishna, but in Russian, I don't know how much what it has this effect in English, but in Russian it has just the effect that she didn't care about her child. She was she didn't care anything about them, because the cuckoo bird is famous, for not caring of his children. So I suggested that it's obvious here that this is not what Prabhupada means here. It means that he was very upset. So I just said that she was crying like a bird.
However, you can't start correcting the books.
But we have to consult.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find things. There are certain things which are presented which may be contradicted in another place. It's not our business to correct the books. If the author said it like that, then we have to be so transparent that we may just continue with that, and let somebody else complain later on. After all, it's only one word and one huge book.
But the readers would just be
Fault-finders.
embarrassed. It looks like the author wants to say that she was very upset.
I mean, I had a whole explanation, but that's complete speculation. But the thing is, it's one example. You said one word in the whole book. I mean, people, if they're sincere and serious about Krishna consciousness, they're gonna. I mean, who is it of us has ever made a big thing? Okay, it's not a big thing.
Yeah, nobody in America knows.
Because she knows in Europe, she knows in Sweden, and it's the same exact thing.
We never heard of it. Well, cuckoo bird means the guy that comes out of the...
Out of the clock, yeah, that's all we know.
Steal the cuckoo.
But the thing is, if they're sincere and they're serious, they're not
Americans
gonna.
are so gross.
They're not gonna write off the whole book.
So what should we do?
You said already, leave it.
No, I
After
didn't say
some
that.
research,
I
after
said
research.
research what the actual word is.
But if it is
Maybe we should check this updated version.
You should, maybe. I doubt anybody would have changed that, but the updated version simply took more things off the tape. Because all the tapes in the Krishna book are still there, so they just checked through the tapes, and those which got dropped out somehow mistakenly, they put back in. That's all the updated version did. And correct the spelling of the words.
Was that major?
If Prabhupada probably said maybe like something like the chikora bird or the some kukura bird or something like that, and the persons who heard the tape just said cuckoo. I mean, that's also possible, because it's the only thing they could understand.
That's it. There are some similar words for some other birds.
What?
These cuckoo birds are often referred to like they're clean, beautiful, and creating special meaning. But does anyone know that the cuckoo bird doesn't cry?
Yeah, who's to say that the cuckoo doesn't, she's so spaced out, she lays eggs and everybody else nests, and then all of a sudden she realizes, oh my God, where are my eggs? And she flips out. That was, the psychology, who knows the psychology of the cuckoo bird?
That's right.
Yeah, but we know the psychology of
She's crying like a cuckoo bird. Why? I just accept that she's crying like a crazy cuckoo bird.
In Russia, if you really want to insult somebody, you call her cuckoo, and it means she's a real cuckoo. You call her a cuckoo.
Okay, so if it comes out to be that it is an insult in a certain language, then you have to change it. In other words, if the phrase in your language is a great insult, you have to change it.
That's what the whole point. So.
Can I just leave it as a bird for most
Yeah, you don't have to label the bird, just as long as like a bird who was, then it's okay. No, but only if it's something, just like the word for the Russian cars that come here means something really nasty in Swedish. Therefore, they changed it to vase. So therefore, that's okay. When you have these problems, you immediately change. Don't worry about it.
So that's the point. So, but
I think, shouldn't you go?
Yeah, of course I should have gone an hour and a half ago, 2 hours.
I think we shouldn't continue.
But should I translate?
Huh?
But should I translate something for myself?
It would be better if you translated something to the Russian people.
No, should I do some translations also?
Right now, we have to surrender. The first thing we have to do is surrender. And that means we have a book production project going on. We want to finish these 2 books before March. So that means we have to surrender to the joint production. And then after those books are finished, we will give you your dictaphone and your typewriter or whatever you want, and you may translate up a storm. But first, do these 2 books.
Well, the second book is not yet existing.
But the first book has got enough work, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an 800-page book. If you say you're going to do 20, 30, 40, 50 pages a day, you better get to work. We say you should do 80 pages at minimum.
Well, practically when I just read something, I read about 100 pages a day.
All right, then you can edit 80. I'm not sure how fast you can go, but anyway, give it a try. In our philosophy, we just try and we see what happens. And if you do some, then somebody else can do some more, and we get it all finished. But first, you're going to make a test. First the test, then we see. If it's valuable, then we'll continue. If not valuable, maybe we give you your own translation project. All right?
Well, I had some other questions, but we don't have time to discuss them now. So what there is.
You don't want to give them a chance to make a test? Yes? Okay.
No.
Test means maybe you pass, maybe you fail. So you should do it as nicely as you can, because we want you to pass. Understand? I want you to edit, because that's required right now for getting the books out quickly. So, do you agree?
Yeah, the thing is that I had this experience that I was, didn't mean any insult, but he never got offended. Perhaps that was anyway the way I did it, although I didn't mean it.
She said she never got offended.
Well, there were tears, I'm sorry. Tears are not, a way to show being pleased. So, if there are corrections to be made, then I'm not just...
I want corrections to be made, but I want these books to be made as well.
Her point is speed.
Yeah.
You cannot be slowpoke.
What?
Turtle.
You cannot go so slow.
What video?
Also,
It was once in Zurich, I came out with one of those, right? And they said, what? And I said another one, you know. So the only way I could explain that one. And they went, what? I came out with another one. And everybody said, forget it. Okay, look, life is moving on in other parts of the world too.
Sorry, she doesn't know.
What?
This is a cartoon bag from another documentary.
I only play the Madonna though, I don't play cross.
These are from Mali.
Very nice.
She made?
Oh no.
Oh.
Socks?
Yeah.
For inside?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, these are nice inside stuff.
I stretch.
You do?
Yeah.
All right, we'll try them. I was looking for these this afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What do you have to write letters for?
This is your letters that's gone 6,000 miles and come 6,000 miles back.
Oh, there is also one. Can you explain it? I think she we all say Maharaj, we all say Balaram Das. We never say Maharaja Balarama Das, but we write Maharaja Balarama Das. So should I keep it?
What?
Maharaj Balaram Das. Who's that? What do you mean? With the A and the end?
With the A at the end. Maharaja we write. In the books it's written Maharaja.
Yeah, because the books are literal.
Yeah, but we pronounce Maharaj.
Right.
But
We
then,
pronounce according to language.
but should I keep the R
Oh, definitely.
and decline it according to this R, because it changes the word completely. If you don't keep the R, then you decline the word, then it becomes, and you decline the word with the R, then they're completely different words.
I think they already resolved all this in Polish. Whatever they did in Polish, you can follow. It's pretty good.
Because Reprima, he doesn't keep the I, and he declines them according to,
Then I'm going to change it.
Especially after that look, right?
I didn't look at him anyway. I just looked and asked what's going on.
I spoke to one Sanskrit professor in Malaysia, and he said the modern Hindus and Bengali, they take the A or
But it's not correct.
no, Sanskrit keeps it.
You have to keep it.
And they pronounce it and they write it. But modern people, they don't.
That's because they speak Hindi.
Yeah.
Hindi, they chop off A's because of laziness, not because of correctness.
Yes.
Hindi, they chop off the A out of laziness, not because of correctness. But Maharaj, you know, what are other words like that? Yeah, Maharaj especially. Balaram, Prabhupada. Yeah.
because it creates such confusion, because I decline them according to the present at the end.
No, but when they're properly written, they must have the
Yeah.
must have the and all our books you find it down.
Come on.
You find the A in our books.
Yeah, no. But the word is in Russian, so the joke the I and then you decline the word. And
But
there
they
is
say
no
it like
R.
anything. They say it like anything. They don't, I mean, if they drop it right into it, everybody says Vishnu Pada, Prabhupada. I mean, they all say like anything, so emphasized.
Yeah, but you know, in when they say it also, they would say pada, but the would be like very soft, practically not there. I mean, you can say or not say.
In Sanskrit.
Hey, Sanskrit is just said by people who have accents.
But in Russian, they say almost like a long A, Vishnu Pada.
Yeah, but no, that's wrong.
They
Who
go,
speaks
yeah.
Sanskrit? That's the point. Who speaks
Maharaj.
Sanskrit?
It is
So
there,
should
but
it be?
it should be.
But and written, it must be there. And spoken, doesn't matter. Everybody speaks according to his accent anyway.
And it creates such confusion because then we decline, and if it is Maharaja, and it is Maharaji, Maharaje, Maharaju, and if it is Maharaj, then it is Maharaja, Maharaja again. The endings are different, and it creates such confusion because someone says, I see Maharaju, and others say, I see Maharaja. That's the problem.
Yeah?
Depending on that A or not. Depending on the A means to leave the A in the written.
You
So let's do it
it
according to that.
Latest Bhagavatam.
Just don't have,
Yeah, the Bhagavad Gita.
no.
Yeah.
The Bhagavad Gita don't breathe? I know that, but I mean,
We'll give a Gita, let's see if we can do this. Krishna Bhakti.
Krishna book is here.
Krishna book.
Somewhere, where? What's here?
We just took one of the books.
Ah, that's probably what. Yeah, what's here?
Krishna.
Swami Ego.
Shamsundari. Marbles. Smash the words. I can't answer this because I don't really understand what all these things
I'm
are.
coming back.
So you can talk to Krishna Bhakti and Maria and
No. Put it in the place. Right there.
whatever else there are, translators who deal with these things and decide amongst yourselves. But the rule is, in Sanskrit, it's written when you transliterate with the A, and it's spoken however way you like.
I'm not going to stay the press. So
Well, I'm probably not going to stay in
Oh,
the
okay.
press either. It's really late. I'll have to come back and say it. Huh? You probably don't.
I could not just call the chief
Okay.
in with someone else.
Alright. Somebody can bring that water up to my place or something. Okay, Hare Krishna.